Hello, welcome to Spoons and Paws. I'm Summer, and at some point I'll add in a picture of my service dog Rowan. She's, doing her own thing right now. I don't want to disturb her. So my video today is about what fibromyalgia feels like to me. When I think of what fibromyalgia feels like, the first thing that comes to mind is a scene from Twilight.
Pain.
Yes, so that's about it. When I watched that movie, I always thought to myself, Jane gives people fibromyalgia, that's her gift, or her curse, or whatever it is. But the way that people seem to be suffering when they come in contact with Jane's powers is what it feels like a lot of the time. That's a question I get a lot, which I completely understand because most people can't really fathom what that feels like. They'll probably like Google it, and you pretty much just get widespread pain or muscular skeletal pain listed. So some of the things that you deal with when you have fibromyalgia are muscle pain and cramps. I guess with muscle pain, I can say maybe what some people have felt, it's similar to what it feels like when you have the flu. That all over body ache sensation. It's kind of like having that all the time, a constant feeling of body aches. There are times when things are worse than they are at other times, but that flu-like feeling is like one of the main base feelings that you have. In addition to that, as far as like muscle cramps goes, there are just general muscle cramps that happen, but sometimes for me, I get a sensation of like, this is probably more for the women out there to understand what this feels like, but it's almost like the feeling of what menstrual cramps feel like, but in all of your muscles. So it's a very like really deep aching sensation that kind of like intensifies and releases and intensifies and releases. Also with fibromyalgia comes like bone pain, like just like a bad like radiating pain in your bones and joints. Usually with fibromyalgia, it's not very much in the joint specifically, but it can be. But I do also have rheumatoid arthritis, so sometimes it's hard to distinguish the difference between what's causing what. There is also a, I guess you could call an electrical pain that happens. It's like a shooting sensation that I'll feel down my arms or down my legs. I feel it in my arms more than anything else, but it pretty much feels like you've just been shocked. And it's kind of just travels down really quickly. If anyone out there has ever had a nerve test done and they like put that little thing on your skin and then they kind of shock through the nerves and they're testing like how they work. It feels like that, just happening on its own. So I've had a nerve test done before and I remember how painful it was to feel the pain that I already feel intensified by a device. Also, I sometimes get this overall feeling as if I'm being poisoned. I know that sounds really weird, but it'll, I don't know any other way to explain it. It's like something is very harmful and bad that's like inside my system, inside my bloodstream, inside like my cells, that is causing harm and causing pain, causing a general feeling of unwellness. And when I feel that, one of the first things I'll do is take a tea, which I mentioned in my What's in My Bag video. It's a tea by Triple Leaf. It's a detox tea. It's a pretty gentle detox tea, but it really helps with that, like, poison, sickly feeling that I get. That comes a lot from when either I've taken something that's my body does not like and is reacting to, or I've eaten something that is not good for me to be eating, like too much sugar, too much caffeine, too much meat, too much dairy, something like that. But sugar and caffeine are like the two things that can cause that, like, the most. Also with that, my senses are very sensitive. I never knew what that came from. A few years back, I met someone who told me that I was a HSP. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. It's, I don't know how technical of a term it is, and it's not like a widely accepted, like, way of thinking, but it pretty much just means highly sensitive people. And basically people with HSP have, like, sensory sensitivity. So just sensitivity to light, to sound, to touch, to smell, to pretty much everything that comes in through the senses. One of the hardest things for me to deal with is the feeling of being cold. If I get really cold, instead of it feeling like, and like, it doesn't even have to be me getting really cold. Like, if I hold like a soda out of the refrigerator, if I hold anything like frozen in my hand, just especially if it's like my hands or my feet, or if I do something like get in a swimming pool, which most swimming pools are, I really don't know what it feels like to most people, but I know they're cold to most people. But for me to get in a swimming pool is like one of the most painful things I can do to aggravate my fibromyalgia. Instead of just feeling cold, it is just a severe pain that comes over, like, my skin and my nerves. So if it's really cold outside, or if it's cold in my room, or if for some reason the shower gets cold, or I touch something cold, the first thought in my mind is that's cold, but then following that goes, this is excruciating. So my body perceives cold as pain, almost all the time. So if I do some water therapy, but it has to be at like a physical therapy location that does it in warm water. Otherwise, there's just no way whatsoever I can do it. With this amount of pain, also, most people with fibromyalgia suffer with insomnia. When you're having constant pain, it's really hard to sleep through, especially when the pain isn't specific, so there's not like any specific thing you can do to help it. But also, even at times where I realize I've taken medication that's really lowered the pain, and when I don't even really feel pain, the insomnia is always there. I've had pretty strong insomnia since I was like 14 or 15 is when I can remember it starting. This insomnia now is severe. I have to take sleep aids. If I don't take some kind of sleep aid, I don't sleep. I can probably stay up for 3 days before I actually fall asleep. In those 3 days, I might be able to get in a 10-30 minute nap here and there, but beyond that, like, it's very easy for me to do that. One of my favorite hobbies to do is baking. I love making cupcakes. I love decorating them. It's like part of the whole craft thing, like doing crafts and stuff like that. It's really fun. But if I really get into making cupcakes for an event or for someone, and I'm taking my dear sweet time with the last parts of the decoration, because I don't fall asleep naturally, because I won't get sleepy naturally, I will be making them. Then the next thing I know, it's like dawn, like it's 5 a.m. and the sun starts coming out, and I'm like, uh-oh, I didn't go to bed. So yeah, I have to really watch that because it happens a lot. My roommate, like, she'll wake up, especially if it's like, 7 a.m. or whatever time that she's getting up. She's like, did you ever fall asleep? And I'm like, no, but I know it's important at some point that I need to, go ahead and take a sleep aid and get some sleep, because that lack of sleep will make the fibromyalgia pain a lot worse as well. So, there's no winning as far as that goes. A lot of times when I have a sudden onset of the fibromyalgia symptoms, happens for some reason a lot at night. Is like it'll come out of nowhere at night, and I can literally be doing nothing, just sitting down watching YouTube or TV or whatever, and all of a sudden the pain will just become so intense in my joints, in my skin, in my muscles. And then when the pain gets really high like that, and literally just starts to gradually get worse out of nowhere, sometimes the pain will induce fever. I don't know why that happens. I don't understand any of like that, why that stuff happens, but it happens often that I will get like a fever for a short period of time because the pain is so high. I don't know if that's like an immune system response. That's just the brain's response to high level of pain, but that's a normal occurrence for me. I do get fevers from rheumatoid arthritis, but the pain, the fibromyalgia thing is separate. And excuse me, looking down, I have notes that I'm looking at, trying to keep myself on track, because, one of the other symptoms is brain fog, which I did mention this in my other video. It, like, I don't know how to describe it. No, I do. You know how when you have really bad allergies or sinus pressure and it feels like your brain just can't work the right speed, or like there's a disconnect happening with your brain because of the congestion's in the way? It's without the actual congestion, it feels similar to that, just like your mind can't make the connections it needs to make, or it's moving very slowly, or like I will have times when my mind just goes blank. And the weird thing is, sometimes I'm aware of it because I'll be in the middle of talking and then all of a sudden there are no thoughts there and I'm very lost at what I was doing. Or it will happen like this gradual emptying, and then I literally just be sitting there doing nothing, like staring forward. And then after like the silence is there for a while, I'll realize, why am I just sitting here? And it's kind of like my brain just fogged over and stopped functioning for a minute. So that made it really hard when I was working, because I did a job where I worked on the phone and I would be talking to patients, and at some point they would be talking to me, give me information that I really need to be listening to, and then all of a sudden I would have no idea what they were talking about, like how the conversation started, if they were waiting for me to say something. That was very embarrassing to happen at work. I would try my best to either try to ask questions to get back on track, or I would just have to say to the patient, I am so sorry, can you repeat yourself in the beginning again? And I know that has to be so frustrating for them, but things like that happening are part of like the things that got in the way of work and made it hard for me to continue working. So as far as like the muscle issues go, there's also a lot of muscle fatigue that comes with my fibromyalgia symptoms and with a lot of people with fibromyalgia. And as far as muscle fatigue goes, I do want to try to explain this, because I think when people think the muscle fatigue, they're thinking of just like, oh, the muscle suddenly becomes weak, which it probably does do that for some people, but muscle fatigue is more like when you have a sensation as if you just run a marathon or done like 100 squats or walked miles when you just took a few steps or just went up like a few sets of stairs. You'll feel like you just went up 100 steps. Like your muscles will be burning and like ready to give out from the simplest things. That's a really hard thing to deal with. I remember when the fibromyalgia was bad and I lived in an apartment that was 2 floors upstairs. Going up those stairs was horrible sometimes. I mean, I would have to rest in between each level, or by the time I got to the top, I literally would just have to stop and rub my legs because they were just on fire. My muscles were burning from something that I was normally able to do without any kind of problem. And so now it'll happen when I'm literally just walking from my room to the kitchen in my apartment. I'll walk there and back and my muscles will be burning. That can be really hard, even hard emotionally, because you feel like why is your body fighting against you? Like, why is it so hard to do something so simple? But, you know, I try to make myself remember that this is just part of, you know, what goes on with my body, that it'll be okay. Also, there's just normal fatigue that comes with the fibromyalgia and the rheumatoid arthritis. So just meaning like you've slept a good amount of hours, but you wake up completely exhausted as if you never slept in the first place. Or you have to take multiple naps during the day or lay down many times because you just, like, for me, it comes in phases. It's not always like that, but there will be times where will sleep the entire day and be so exhausted, even though, like, every time I try to wake up to do something, to get up for a moment, I'm so exhausted, my body just wants to go right back to sleep. That type of fatigue can be very debilitating, because you can't get anything done. You can't even, like, do your own self-care, like taking care of yourself, like brush your teeth, shower, stuff like that. Like, you can't even bring yourself to do that. With the fatigue comes just struggling to do the simplest things that everybody else doesn't even think about. If you haven't heard of the spoon theory, I really suggest you look it up, especially if you have someone in your life who has fibromyalgia or a chronic illness and they deal with fatigue, or you see that they struggle with everyday things. Look up the spoon theory. It's a really amazing analogy that helps people understand. Like, it gives an example of, say, you start out the day with 12 spoons. Spoons are just what the analogy uses, but you can think like, okay, your cell phone, the amount of bars in the battery for your cell phone, you know, you start out with so many bars, and then as you do each thing throughout the day, one of those bars disappears. With people with chronic illness, they use a lot more energy just to do something simple. So like with the spoon theory, say you're just waking up, just getting up and getting out of bed, that's going to take a spoon. For most people, that action doesn't use up any of their energy reserve for the day. It's just what they do. But doing something like taking a shower, there are days where taking a shower is the only thing I end up having the energy to do. Like, first I have to find the energy to get in the shower, because in my mind I know how hard it's going to be. But the worst part is when you're done with that shower, like, I have to use a shower chair because the exhaustion can get so bad in the shower. And then also with the rheumatoid arthritis, my joints and back will hurt. So standing through the normal length of a shower is very painful for me. So I have to be able to sit. But even with sitting in the shower, once I get out of the shower, I have to like lay down in my towel or robe in my bed for quite a while and wait for some more energy to come back to get dressed. Like, just think about that, having to like lay down, take a nap or sleep after a shower because it's that exhausting. I'm sure some people who don't deal with chronic illness have felt that when they are sick. Like, when you're sick and you just have to try to get up and do the simplest thing and it's exhausting. It's, you know, like that all the time. With the sensitivity that comes with fibromyalgia, which I did just recently learn that this was connected. If I can remember, I'll try to link the video below. There was a YouTube video I recently watched with a doctor, a rheumatologist who works with a lot of patients with fibromyalgia, and she connected some of this stuff. And at first I just thought, like, it's just me, who I am, and then I also thought maybe it has something to do with that HSP thing, but I found out that a lot of people with fibromyalgia have the sensitivity thing, like sensitivity to everything, the sensitivity to light and sound and smell. So along with that comes a sensitivity to like chemicals and cleaning products, which, you know, it's weird, as like each year that goes by it gets stronger and stronger for me. So like the one of the first big things I had a hard time dealing with was dish soap. So it reached a point where the smell of dish soap was so overpowering, where like something had been washed with dish soap and all I could do is smell the dish soap in my food. I could taste the dish soap in my food, especially if it was like washed with something that was plastic, like Tupperware or something. Like if it was Tupperware, like I could not eat out of Tupperware for a long time because I tasted soap so strongly in there. And then one day, my roommate just happened to buy Mrs. Meyer's dish soap from Sprouts when she was shopping. And I remember when I used it, it was the first time ever that I didn't taste the dish soap. And that one, like after I washed the dishes, I couldn't smell the dish soap on my hands afterward. I couldn't feel the filminess of the dish soap afterward. And then I couldn't taste the dish soap on the dishes that we washed. And it was just something that, like, as it happened, I thought, like, oh, that's really great. This is one that I don't taste the dish soap in. But as time passed, it reached a point where I just couldn't tolerate the dish soap on anything, or even like the dishwashing liquid or powder that goes in the dishwasher. Like, everything just tasted so strongly of it. So me and my roommate made a choice that we would start only buying the more natural forms of cleaning products to help with that. So we either will use like Method or mainly Mrs. Meyer's dish soap, which is wonderful because it does not leave that smell and taste in there. And then I started to slowly start becoming so sensitive to the smell of my laundry detergent, which I was shocked for, because I'm normally one of those people who, because my sense of smell is so sensitive, I I I try to mask the smells of other things that bother me with more pleasant smells. So I normally like things like lotions and body sprays, and I normally love like really good smelling laundry detergent like Gain and stuff like that. I usually love that fresh smell. But it reached a point where the scent of the laundry detergent was literally giving me gag reflex. Like, I would smell it on my clothes or smell it on my towels or whatever, and I would have like the urge to vomit, which I don't know why that is or where it came from, but I eventually had to switch to more natural laundry detergent. So I actually use Method laundry detergent now. I use their laundry detergent, fabric softener, and their dryer sheets, so that my sense of smell isn't so like bothered by what I'm washing it in. And I don't have any problem with those either. It doesn't give me any sensation. I do use one that's scented. It's like their ginger mango scent. I'm hoping I don't reach a point where I have to use a completely unscented one, but whatever they use to scent it isn't the same type of chemical, and it doesn't have the same response for me as the scents that are in regular laundry detergent. And then with my rheumatoid arthritis, I get these like rheumatoid rashes on my hands when I'm having a really bad flare up of the rheumatoid arthritis. And one of my doctors had suggested that I start wearing gloves when I clean, but also start cleaning with more natural products, because there's not a lot known about the type of rash that I'm getting, and they don't know how affected it will be by things that I touch. So I started buying Method and Mrs. Meyer's cleaners, and I realized how much my sense of smell dealt with them a lot better. And then I kind of just felt less like fibromyalgia pain and like just unwell feeling. I start feeling it a little bit less when I started using those products. Like it was like not as much was bombarding my system all the time. So now that's all I use is the natural cleaning products, so that I know it's safe for my skin, and then it's also easier on my sense of smell and seems to be safe for my body, because we're absorbing whatever we're cleaning with in our bodies, especially when it comes to like cleaning your bathroom and your tub and things like that. And then there is, with the sensitivity of sound, which I know this isn't just a fibromyalgia thing, it happens with a lot of people, but watching TV and things like that can be really hard, because nothing is at like an even tone. Like, it'll be like the talking is really quiet in a movie, then all of a sudden the action and like the banging and the special effects become so painfully loud. So usually I learned this from my late husband, was to turn the movie or TV down to where you could bear the loudest sounds, and then even though the talking part gets quiet, we would always keep on closed captioning for everything we watched, so that we could just, if we're struggling to hear what the dialogue part is, we're able to just listen or read the closed captionings, and so that we can tolerate the sound better. So like I like, after I learned that, that was like an eye-opening moment. Like, that was so smart. He also had like sensitivity with sound and things like that. Even when I'm watching YouTube videos or whatever, I use closed captioning, so I don't have to put it very loud, so it makes it a lot easier for my ears and like the sensitivity of sound. With the fibromyalgia also comes GI issues, so issues with your GI tract. Some of my GI issues, they think, are autoimmune related or response to the rheumatoid arthritis, but I learned recently also that people with fibromyalgia tend to have GI issues as well, even if it's just something as similar as gastritis or IBS or something like that. I'm seeing GI specialists right now. We still are trying to figure out what all is going on with my digestive tract, but my diagnosis for sure at this point are Garrett's esophagus, which is kind of something that can happen after you've had really severe acid reflux for a long time. It's where the lining of your esophagus becomes similar to the lining of your stomach, and your esophagus is producing acid as well. And the cells can become abnormal, so they do have to do like regular endoscopes to check and biopsy the cells so that they don't grow into something more serious. I was also diagnosed with gastroparesis, and gastritis and IBS and things like that. So just, trying to deal with those things. So like, I have two stories for you. One, as far as like an example of how the fibromyalgia and like the overactive nerves can make things that wouldn't hurt someone normally hurt. I remember once my back was itching and I borrowed someone's back scratcher, and I gently just scratched my back where it itched, but like I did like 3 or 4 swipes, and and like I had this extreme pain follow the sensation of scratching my back. Like, it literally felt like maybe someone had slapped me with that back scratcher on my back, and my muscles and nerves just tightened and responded so dramatically just to scratching my back with the back scratcher, which I'm assuming I was touching like right at some trigger points or something. I don't know, but I remember I sat there silent and so shocked, like, what is that pain from me just using a back scratcher? So, just have to be careful with the things that you do, because for some reason your body might interpret them as pain. And then another story is I have a lot of back pain, but I do also have arthritis and scoliosis in my back. But there was a type of back pain that I was suffering with for like 10 years. I injured my back when I was a sophomore in college, and I was so young that I should have healed from that. I had like a whole year of physical therapy at the time, and I, had really good care, and it should have passed because I was young and you heal fast, and I did have like really good physical therapy and everything. But for some reason the back pain never subsided, and I just kind of suffered with like severe back pain for many years. It was really hard because I was like, I'm young, yet my life at that time, this was before I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia or rheumatoid arthritis, but my life at that time revolved around my back pain, like what kind of job I could have, what kind of day I was having, what I was gonna do in that day. Like, everything pretty much just had to do with like how severe back pain was, like, and what it was stopping me from doing. And then I remember when I had my first rheumatoid arthritis flare, I didn't know what it was, and I went to go see my doctor. She did some blood work and then sent me to a rheumatologist. At that time, the rheumatologist was telling me, you know, your rheumatoid arthritis isn't very active right now. I don't think that's causing the problem. And so she did some tests. She did some physical tests. She did some actual blood work. And then she, after only a few visits, which I know some people feel like you can't get a diagnosis fast, but if you have a long history and you're able to show that history and you know that history well, and if you have a really good rheumatologist, this wasn't like a primary care physician, someone who specializes in this and has years of experience in the field, they are able to diagnose fibromyalgia quickly, because like I just happened to be a classic case of it. So, you know, I had all of the trigger points, I had all of the symptoms that you normally have, and then I also had the inflammation markers in my blood work, and I had like certain type of muscle spasms to the touch and things like that. So I think like we had only maybe had 3 or 4 visits before she diagnosed me with fibromyalgia. And at that time I didn't believe her, because I didn't really know what fibromyalgia was, and I thought that that was just a term they threw out there when you have some kind of pain that they can't explain. So when she told me, you know, I'm diagnosing with fibromyalgia, I want to slowly start you on some different medication options to see if we can help with the pain, I just went along with what she said. I was like, if she thinks she can help the pain, I'll go with it. But I wasn't going to tell anybody I had fibromyalgia or anything like that, because I'm like, that's not even a real thing. That's just something they say when they don't know what's wrong. And I remember, like, to follow through with the way my insurance needed, I had to try certain medications first before she could prescribe me Lyrica, because I had to show that the other medications wouldn't help. And so once I got on Lyrica, like, not even exaggerating, I was on Lyrica for 24 hours. When I woke up 24 hours after that first day, I sat up out of the bed and my back pain went from like a constant 7 to like a 4, like a 3 or a 4. And I remember I woke up and I cried, because I hadn't felt relief in my back pain in so long that I couldn't remember what that felt like. And I remember going to some people that I lived with at the time and saying like, oh my gosh, like they need to do a study on Lyrica and back pain, because I've been in severe back pain for 10 years and the Lyrica is stopping my back pain. And I remember when I went for my follow-up with the doctor, and she's like, you want to know if I was having any side effects from Lyrica, which amazingly I had 0, and that tends to be a medication people have a lot of side effects with. But I wasn't having any side effects, and I think I was on it for like a month when I had my appointment with her, and I just kept raving to her about how like they need to do a study on back pain and Lyrica, because I mean, I know other people who've suffered with severe back pain like I did, and there's just never an answer for it. And so for me to finally see that there's a medication that can reduce the back pain like that, I was just like, the world needs to know, like people who are suffering need to know how well this fibromyalgia medication helps with back pain. And I remember her telling me, well, you know, back pain is a symptom of fibromyalgia. And I was like, okay, yeah, whatever. Well, anyway, they should do a study anyway, because like I've been in pain for so long, and there's not even a narcotic that could help the way the Lyrica was helping. And then I remember I'm trying to think of where the other place was that I went. I think I was just probably talking to my primary care physician, and I was telling her how well Lyrica had been helping my back pain and how they should do a study on Lyrica and back pain. And she was like, well, you know, back pain is a symptom of fibromyalgia. And I was just like, I don't know. It was just kind of running through one ear and out the other. So finally, what it took me to finally accept I had fibromyalgia and understand that that is probably why my original back injury just never stopped hurting, because the fibromyalgia just was triggering the pain signals as if the injury never gone away, was when I went to go see a podiatrist that my rheumatologist sent me to help with pain I was having in my feet and things like that. And I had been needing like custom orthotics my whole life because I have almost flat feet, but they're very expensive and it's not covered by insurance. So I was happy when I was finally able to do that. So when I went to the podiatrist, I remember he wanted to go over what are my health issues, and of course I give him this list, and rheumatoid arthritis and fibromyalgia, and then I go to tell him, like, I just had to tell everybody, you know, when you find something great, you gotta tell everybody. So I was like, you know, they should do the study on Lyrica in back pain because I was in back pain for 10 years and the Lyrica's helped so much. And he goes, well, you know. So after he finally told me that, it was kind of like, okay, I believe you. So I probably had the severe back pain due to fibromyalgia. Okay, I have fibromyalgia, and the reason why Lyrica is helping my fibromyalgia or my back pain so much is because the back pain was due to the fibromyalgia. So that was just funny, you know. That's what denial looks like, and to have three different type of doctors, especially someone like a podiatrist who has nothing to do with all of that, or nothing to do with fibromyalgia, you know, had to also tell me, well, it's your fibromyalgia, that's why. So that was funny. But so those are all like the symptoms and what the pain feels like and things like that. So some of the things that tend to help me with my pain, which is one, what I already mentioned, the detox tea, something I try to carry with me at all times so that I can take it if I start feeling some of the pain coming on. Another thing that is very helpful is different forms of heat therapy are very, very helpful with fibromyalgia pain. Things like steam rooms, saunas, heating pads. One of the best gifts I ever got, a Christmas gift from my brother and my sister-in-law, was a heating blanket. Like, not like a throw or anything, like they got me like a queen size, like it's like a plush, like, I don't know what the material is. It's just really plush, kind of like a teddy bear almost, heating blanket. And that I asked for that the year I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia and I had my first rheumatoid arthritis flare up, and just that constant pain. I realized that when I was able to get myself warm, it helped. So that heating blanket, like, to be able to come home after like once the end of the day is coming and the pain is starting to like flare up a lot more, and to be able to come home, turn on that heating blanket and get under there and just let myself like get so hot that I'm sweating, which sounds uncomfortable, but when it helps with the pain you're having, like that heating blanket, like this was probably 7 years ago, 8 years ago when they got this for me. I use it to this day. It usually only stays in my bed during the winter months, which I live in San Diego, so you know we don't really have a winter, but it's colder than usual. But during the times where it gets colder, it's on my bed and it's on anytime I'm near my bed. My dog happens to love that too. Love the little warmness on the bed. She's one of those dogs that, like, if you get up in the middle of the night to go use the bathroom and you come back, she'll be laying in your warm spot that you were just laying in and looking at you like, what? Like, you can sleep somewhere else. So she definitely enjoys the heating blanket. So I definitely suggest, if you suffer from fibromyalgia, get heated throws, heating blankets. I have 3 different heating pads. One I keep in my room, one that I keep in my our living room, so if I'm out there and I need it, and then I used to keep one at work. Now it just stays in my room, and I usually lend it out. That's usually like my lender renter one that I let people use. So those are great things to have. And then, let's see, other things that help are, my service dog is trained to do something for me called pressure therapy, which I won't act like I'm completely 1000% knowledgeable on the difference, but it is in some way somewhat different than deep pressure therapy. Because of the fibromyalgia, if she does the positions on me that are usually part of deep pressure therapy, that tends to just hurt me a little bit too much. But with pressure therapy, she's laying a more even part of her body over some section of me, and she's laying like a softer part of her body, so it's not like her forearms or her feet or anything like that. She'll usually lay like her entire torso over whatever part of my body hurts, and that pressure of her weight, which she's not very heavy, the pressure of the weight and the heat of her body helps so much with the pain. I'm sure it's like the same effect of a weighted blanket. I don't have one of those, but it is definitely on the list of things that I want to get, because I'm sure not only will it help with sleep and pain and anxiety. And so anyway, so yeah, so that's very helpful as well. I will try to insert a clip of her doing the pressure therapy so that you have some idea of like what that looks like. Pressure. 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 So yeah, things like hot baths help with anyone, like it does for anyone, and aromatherapy helps. I really love using, like, Bath and Body Works has these roll-on aromatherapies. They have like a eucalyptus spearmint one, and that one really helps with like releasing stress and like tension and things like that. I also, that little green thing behind me right there is a diffuser, so putting like some aromatherapy in a diffuser helps. This little light, this like amber colored light right there, that is a Himalayan salt lamp. That really helps with the symptoms of everything because it's like an air purifier. So it's really helpful, and it's a good gentle light, so when it's darker in my room or my eyes are sensitive or I'm like getting headaches or whatever, it has a dimmer on it, so it's a nice soft amber light, so it's a great thing to be able to have. So I hope that was very helpful for those out there who just want to feel like that someone out there understands what their pain is like and what it feels like. And also for those of you who just were curious about what fibromyalgia is and what it's like. But yeah, so you're not alone in your pain if you're suffering from fibromyalgia. I hope some of my suggestions are helpful for you to either help understand some of the symptoms you had that you didn't know were related, or some of the things I've mentioned that are helpful. If you guys have any questions about like medications or therapies or things like that, that might help with it, or just questions in general, or if you have somebody in your life with it and you have questions, you know, that about ways to help them, leave some comments below. I'd love to answer any questions that you have. I'm pretty open about it, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll be able to put more stuff up here hopefully as soon as possible. I'll try to record as much as I can, and thank you, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.